Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and magic puzzle boxes. I'm Noah Hook, and today I'm ranking all of the Cenobites from the Hellraiser franchise. I had originally planned to just do a top 10 and maybe do a top 10 worst, but after going through the full list, it made more sense to just conjoin the two. With a bit of creative liberty, I was able to cut the Cenobites down to 20, meaning that Cenobites that have a few different incarnations but are essentially the same character are being counted as one, such as Bound 1 and 2. I am ranking the Cenobites on their design, their importance to the story, and their frequency within the series. I am pretty much focusing on what these Cenobites did in the films, so content and lore coming from the comics or Clive Barker's books aren't really being considered in this list. So with that, let's jump into the rankings. Number 20. Coming in last place is Dreamer from Hell on Earth. Hell on Earth is known for its crappy homemade Cenobites, and for me, Dreamer is the most pathetic. The design is just a boring carbon copy of the female, and the Cenobite doesn't even get to do anything. The other Cenobites are more ridiculous in this movie, but it leaves Dreamer's design lacking. She's just there in the finale and burns Joey with her throat cigarette. And it's a shame because Terry was a character we actually got to know a bit, and her reason for becoming a Cenobite is just so illogical and forced in. Number 19. Following Dreamer is obviously her shitty boyfriend Pistonhead. JP was the secondary antagonist in Hell on Earth, and while he is a human, he does a pretty good job at that, but similarly to Dreamer, he comes in too late with nothing to do but hit Joey a couple times and get sucked into the box. This one is also such a shame because you expect JP to become a cool Cenobite, and design-wise he's okay. The piston is interesting and a decent metaphor for JP's sexual nature, but while the other Cenobites aside from Dreamer have powers, all Pistonhead can do is beat you up like a middle school bully. There are Cenobites coming up later in this list I like less than Pistonhead, but I had to put him here because he was such wasted potential. Number 18. Now we're heading into the portion of the list where pretty much non-existent and non-offensive Cenobites live. Coming in 18th is the Surgeon Cenobite from Hellseeker. Surgeon looks pretty fucking cool, but we don't get to see him do anything aside from suffocate a woman through a camera screen. And unlike some of his pals in Hellseeker, we never see Surgeon again. RIP. Number 17. Similarly, 17 is going to be the little sister Cenobite from Deader. She is in one decent scene sewing a woman's neck on the subway, and she is around during the finale, but she was clearly just an add-on in the story and serves no function, and she is also pretty much a copy of the Wire Twins design. Number 16. Coming in at 16 is the Female Chatterer, otherwise known as Chatterer 4 from Revelations. Female Chatterer is one of the only two new Cenobites in the shitty Revelations, and she's fine, I guess. All she does is hang around like a useless crony. She at least participates in the finale a bit, so that's cool, I guess. Disclaimer, I did join Chatterer, Torso, and Chatterer 3 into one for this list. I was considering including the Female Chatterer with that grouping, but she is kind of her own thing, so I left her by herself. Number 15. 15 might be divisive. I feel like people really like this Cenobite, if you can call it that. I'm of course talking about the Chatterer Beast from Bloodline. I get the initial appeal, ooh, Pinhead has an evil dog. But when you watch Bloodline, the thing is only shown for 3 seconds at a time because it's a fucking puppet and can't do anything aside from chatter. And if it isn't a puppet, it's a crappy, faraway CGI. It's supposed to be a bunch of mangled people formed into the shape of a dog, which is a cool idea, but nothing in the movie actually indicates that. It just acts like a generic movie monster. Number 14. 14 is staying on the Bloodline train with the Siamese Twins. We also met these Cenobites in life, two twin brothers who were conjoined by Pinhead. We don't get to see them until the future portion of Bloodline, when all those space cops were getting killed. The twins only get one kill, and once again, their concept is way cooler than the movie could afford to execute. We don't get to see anything. If they had this guy melting all over the floor, they'd be way higher, but this is all we get of them, and then they disappear for the rest of the movie and blow up. Number 13. I bet y'all were wondering when I was going to get back to Hell on Earth. The answer is now. Up first is Camerahead, who is the poster boy for the ridiculous Cenobites in Hell on Earth. He's got a camera in his head that can protract and bust through people's skulls like a xenomorph, and also just magically blow shit up. I really like his lens kill, and his dialogue is unintentionally hilarious. I honestly really enjoy watching him, CD, and Barbie, but I can't pretend his design holds up, and not to mention that Doc deserved better. Number 12. Following up Camerahead is his good old buddy CD. You know, the one that ejects CDs from his tummy and throws them like shuriken? Yeah, that one. He's in the same boat as Camerahead. He's so fucking ridiculous and more of a robot than a Cenobite. Once again, I enjoy watching him and their rampage on the street, but they are just so far from the course of what the Cenobites have been set up to be at this point. Number 11. And to wrap up this incredible trio at number 11 is of course Barbie. Barbie isn't quite as ridiculous as his counterparts and actually poses a credible threat when he is breathing fire. I believe it's his design that would eventually inspire the bound Cenobite. I like Barbie too, but I couldn't justify putting him in the top 10. Before I get to the top 10, I want to give some quick honorable mentions to some characters that aren't actually Cenobites but work closely with them and deserve some recognition. Those go to the many derelicts we've seen through the years for continuing to get idiots to open the lament configuration, the Auditor for being a lot of fun to watch in the Stygian Inquisition and making judgment bearable, the Engineer for being a scary-ass monster roaming the labyrinth, and of course to Leviathan for being a crazy box demon god thing none of the sequels after Hellbound dared to touch. Number 10. My number 10 also might be controversial with Pseudo Pinhead. Yes, Revelation sucked. Yes, the new Pinhead sucked. Yes, the plot sucked. Yes, the characters sucked. But the only little parts of Revelations that interested me was seeing the Cenobites in hell waiting for the box to open, and the focal point of that was watching how Pseudo Pinhead was constructed. His face was peeled off and each new square of flesh is from a new victim, which I think is a fun twist. He's also the only time we get to see an in-process Cenobite. Every other character we see turned into a Cenobite just disappears for a while and comes back as a soulless killing machine. Number 9. Coming in at 9 are Bound and Bound 2 from Hellseeker, Deader, and Hellworld. The Boda trilogy of Hellraisers pretty much suck, and the Cenobites aren't much of an exception. The Bounds are here because they have 3 Hellraiser outings, giving them more appearances than the female or Butterball. The design is a little generic, but it is more in line with the look of the original Cenobites. Bound doesn't do anything crazy, but they consistently show up 3 movies in a row, and he gets to chop up Lance Henriksen, so that has to be worth something. Number 8. 8 is similar to Bound, with Stitch and the Stitch Twins from Hellseeker, Deader, and Judgment. Stitch is also around for 2 Boda films and doesn't do a ton in them, but her design is a bit cooler than Bound's, and she gets an extra boost for having major Wire Twin vibes in Judgment. Speaking of, number 7. Number 7 is the Wire Twins from Inferno. The twins are the only completely new Cenobites we get in Inferno, but they do not disappoint. To this day, I think they are the only ones to effectively visually communicate the mix of pain and pleasure the Cenobites seek. Inferno was actually the first Hellraiser I saw as a kid, and the scene where they go beneath Thorn's skin was enough to hook me. It's a shame we never got more of this creepy, erotic duo. Number 6. Coming in at number 6 is one of the OGs, our big boy Butterball from the original Hellraiser and Hellbound. Butterball, just like all of the original 4, look really good. The little black glasses over the sewn eyes, the sharp teeth, he's super creepy. Unfortunately, he is the least fleshed out of the original 4. He has no lines and no kills to his name, unless you count maybe Frank and Julia. In Hellbound, he is just around to look creepy until Chenard swiftly kills him. He never got to do anything really cool, but his fantastic visuals and presence were able to land him this position. Number 5. Following Butterball is another OG, the female. Unlike Butterball, the female actually has a few lines in Hellraiser and Hellbound. She's a lot scarier in the original than in Hellbound. Her following Kirsty through the house while her throat makes those awful noises is really good. But similarly to Butterball, she just didn't do as much as she could have before being killed. I am glad we got to understand her a bit better than most of the Cenobites during her time though. Number 4. My number 4 is Angelique from Bloodline. And I need to be clear, pretty much all of why I'm putting her here happened before she became a Cenobite. She was the first demon to be summoned by the Lament configuration, at least that we see. I really enjoyed her discourse with Pinhead about the superior way to capture souls, and watching her rip Jacques' heart out was quite satisfying. She was arguably the main villain for the first 2/3 of Bloodline, with Pinhead taking a back seat. but when she returns in the final third as a Cenobite, she barely has any lines, and none of them have any consequence. She has been hunting the merchants for hundreds of years, but turns into another boring Pinhead lackey. At least her design is really badass though. Number 3. Okay, top 3. Y'all probably have a good idea of who is left to pick. My number 3 is the Doctor, aka Chenard. It's no secret I think Chenard's transformation into a Cenobite really upped the clusterfuck feeling of Hellbound's finale, but I can't deny he is a powerful villain and probably the wildest Cenobite design ever. Wires on the face, tentacle dick fingers with an assortment of weapons, and Leviathan's giant dick attached to his head. He's got it all. And while his time as a character was pretty one-note, stereotypically evil, he does a lot with his time, killing a patient and Tiffany's mom, resurrecting Julia, opening the box, entering the labyrinth, and becoming a Cenobite. He was made to be a Cenobite, and he is the one who kills the original 4, a creative decision I didn't care for, but you can't deny the importance and power of that. Number 2. The number 2 spot has to go to Pinhead's number 2, the Chatterer. Between Chatterer, Torso, and Chatterer 3, the character is in 7 of the 10 movies, not including Bloodline and Revelations, which both have Chatterer-based Cenobites. Hell on Earth actually probably has Chatterer in a flashback, so he's practically in the whole series, and that's because his design was too cool to let go. Chatterer is the most disfigured Cenobite we've seen. His face is mutilated beyond recognition. Similarly to Butterball, Chatterer is more in the background in the first 2, but he does stick his fingers in Kirsty's mouth and is clearly the brute force of the group. Chatterer created Torso in his own image before his passing, and he just wandered the labyrinth until he appeared in Inferno with the Wire Twins. I fucking love Torso, he's so freaky. Chatterer 3 is fine. By this point, Pinhead is the star of the show, so he doesn't get to do a ton, but he is the second most prevalent Cenobite, and for good reason. Number 1. And finally, the number 1 spot. Who else could it be besides Pinhead? Pinhead is the Hellraiser series. By my count, he has racked up around 40 kills in his 10 outings, coming out to 4 kills per movie, although most of those are from Hell on Earth and Deader. Doug Bradley brought the character to life spectacularly, and it's a shame we might not get to see one more Pinhead out of him. He has more great quotes than I can count, and we really get to understand the character inside and out. We see him as Elliot Spencer, the evil within him, the two merge together, and everything in between. He has one of the most unique powers with his hooks, which is on display in every Hellraiser aside from stupid-ass Hellworld. Pinhead, despite the low quality of most of the Hellraiser movies, is one of the most recognizable horror characters in history. He is an icon in his own right. He is truly the number 1 Cenobite. So that's about it. Do you agree with my list? Disagree? Let me know down in the comments. A list like this is bound to have a bunch of disagreements, so I'd really love to see your rankings. Thanks for watching. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and this has been Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching this episode of Hamburgers and Horror. If you enjoyed this video, please go like and subscribe so you can check out the rest of my videos. Also go check me out on Instagram. And if you want to help support this channel further, go check out my Patreon account. Thanks y'all, stay safe out there.